Firstly, I rinse my salt mackerel. I added it into some water, let it soak for about half an hour, and then I'm gonna pour off that water, and then I'm gonna place them into some fresh water. Now I'm using a pound of salt mackerel. You can use more or less. So this is the water that I added the salt mackerel into after it soaked for half an hour. So I'm gonna place it into some water to come up to a boil. Alright, so you want to rinse your salt mackerel, you want to soak it, then you want to boil it. Now this step will ensure that your salt mackerel is not as salty as when you just rinse it off and add it to the pot. Alright, so I'm gonna boil mine once since I soaked it for half an hour. You could soak it longer, and then after boiling it, then I'll show you the next step. I normally place my salt mackerel into some lukewarm or cold water. So you want to let it boil for maybe about 15 to 20 minutes because you don't want the salt mackerel to boil until it mash out in the pot. Alright, salt mackerel is very soft, so you don't need to boil it very long. Alright, so when it's finished boiling, I'm going to remove it from the pot. Then I'm going to add it into some cold water, just for it to cool down and to soak out the excess salt. Alright, so you could just repeat that soaking method for about 2 or 3 times depending on how you want it. Alright, but you don't necessarily have to boil it more than once. So if you choose, you could boil it twice and then you soak it, but because I did the soaking before I boil it, so I'm not gonna do all of that. Alright, now I did clean up my salt mackerel and I break it into some pieces, and I also deboned it. So now it's time for me to move over to the stove. So I'm gonna add some oil into the pot. Now for me, I'm not gonna use a lot of oil. Now depending on your liking, you could use more oil. Alright, but this amount of oil is good enough for me, even though the salt mackerel absorbs the oil, but I don't want mine to be greasy. So I added some fresh seasoning, some tomato, some scallion, some onion, some scotch bonnet pepper. Now you can use sweet pepper, you can use any seasoning that you like. Alright, but make sure your tomato them nice and ripe. So I'm gonna saute my seasoning for maybe about 2 minutes on a low flame, because you know I want them to remove all that flavor, but I don't want them to become all mashed out. Alright, before I add my salt mackerel. Now after 2 minutes, I'm placing my salt mackerel into the pot. Now guys, bear in mind that even if you break up your salt mackerel and you taste a little piece and it tastes salty to you, you could always just, re-soak it. Alright, so just place it into some more water, let it soak for maybe about 10 minutes more. Then you drain off that water, you squeeze the excess before you add it into the pot. Alright, to fry it up, because you don't want the oil to pop on you. Alright, so stir it up nicely. After doing so, guys, I'm gonna add some black pepper and some vinegar. Alright, now I do love the vinegar in mine, and I love to add a little bit of ketchup. Now the ketchup is completely optional, you don't necessarily have to add it, but for me guys, it is a must in my salt mackerel. Alright, so because I use a tomato already, you don't necessarily have to use a tomato ketchup. The vinegar now just give it that nice flavor. Yes guys, so I always add some vinegar in my salt mackerel. Alright, so you can add anything that you would like to add, and you don't necessarily have to add the black pepper. I choose to add it because I love black pepper, but the more scotch bonnet pepper you use, you don't necessarily have to add no black pepper. Okay guys, that's just my preference. And thing is, just see you want to add it into your pot, then you can go ahead. Or if you want to take away whatever I add that add into the pot that you don't have interest in, then just go ahead, because remember guys, I always say it's your kitchen. Now I like to cover the pot for maybe about 2 minutes and just let that simmer together, and then give it another stir, and then it's all done. Now guys, even though I never add enough oil and it seems as if the salt mackerel absorb all the oil, you can see that there are some grease left in the pot. Alright, so even though the salt mackerel absorb all of the oil, it's still in the food. You're not gonna know where it can disappear out of the pot, right? So I'm gonna split up some, and I'm having mine with some green banana and some yellow yam. Now thank you for watching, and stay blessed.